Caitlyn Clark modifies her intentions for the European League and alters her direction. Since Caitlyn Clark has decided to play in the WNBA once more after returning to America from her Europe League journey, Indiana fans' request has finally been granted. Though Europe was virtually giving Caitlyn the royal treatment, ready to put a crown on her head and make her the highest paid female baller in the league, let's not forget that the WNBA has a toxic culture and has been a hot mess with her throughout the season. It appears from this interview that she will likely earn more money playing in the EuroLeague abroad than she did in WNBA season. However, WNBA Commissioner Cathy Engelbert acknowledged the error and personally apologized to Caitlyn, denouncing the bigotry and outlining their plans to make amends. Since the WNBA has suffered without Caitlyn Clark, let's face it, they cannot afford to lose her permanently. What is the WNBA working on right now? Will they truly fulfill their commitments? And after all that drama, how precisely did they persuade her to stay? Caitlyn Clark deserves an apology, or they just must. Now, how often do you hear a sports commissioner become overly emotional and apologize to a player? Yes, never. In all honesty, Caitlyn was on the verge of leaving, taking the bag, and becoming the global face of basketball. Therefore, it takes extreme desperation for the commissioner to fall into "we failed you" mode. They didn't just come up with this PR gimmick in a boardroom. This was personal. No. The commissioner came forward and acknowledged that the WNBA had failed Caitlyn in a major way, including by ignoring blatantly discriminatory behavior and filthy politics on and off the field. Yes, that was the reason Caitlyn had her passport in hand and 1 foot out the door. Then, late last night, Cathy Engelbert rushed to social media to somewhat clarify, saying, quote, "There is absolutely no place for hate or racism of any kind in the WNBA or anywhere else." The world is left wondering, wait, what just happened when the WNBA abruptly decides to take responsibility for their mess? Since the WNBA isn't exactly known for managing its drama well, let's face it, they have a tendency to ignore problems in the hopes that they would go away. That's why they publicly acknowledge that they failed Caitlyn. That isn't only unexpected, it's really crazy. They seem to have finally recognized that we didn't simply lose a player. The player was lost. Their star wasn't all that Caitlyn was. People even tuned in because of her. Additionally, without her, the league was in danger of flatlining as ticket sales plummeted and viewership plummeted. The WNBA didn't simply make a mistake, they were looking down on themselves, and the ship's survival depended on Caitlyn. However, this year's WNBA has been a complete mess and quite unprofessional. They must also take action. Additionally, they must act quickly. She is saying, yeah, you made a mistake, but you're going to make amends by declining that lovely European gig. Nor is this solely about her. She is making the league as a whole take a serious look in the mirror and begin addressing the issues they have been avoiding. It was more than a show apology. It served as a warning to the fans and the WNBA that things would change. What about Caitlyn? Leading the charge, she said she will now attempt to adapt to the WNBA's past actions. The WNBA will lose much more than only Caitlyn the next time if they don't improve their performance now. Actually, I don't think it will be much of an adjustment time for me. Caitlyn is back now. It's on her terms, though. The WNBA is aware that they cannot afford to make a mistake once more. They're getting more than just their star back with Caitlyn's comeback. They have the opportunity to completely change their story. Basketball is no longer the only topic of discussion here. Caitlyn is the one with all the cards, and it's about repairing what's broken. We have never witnessed such a change in power. And for years to come, it will be the narrative that everyone talks about. And I'm telling you now, if the WNBA can get away with this, one of the largest robberies will occur next. The league's internal problems were investigated, and more than a few bad apples were found. This was a complete scandal, oh no. As it happens, Caitlyn had to deal with a variety of trash, both on and off the court. And who were this horror show's main stars? Of course, Alyssa Thomas and Angel Reese. You knew their names would be mentioned, didn't you? Apparently, these two had been inflicting much more than simply bullying, racist remarks, and hard fouls. What about the league since Caitlyn BS? Angel would be good for ratings. They decided to overlook it. Not at all, spoiler alert. Make an effort to instill racism by suggesting that everyone is racist just because they disagree with them, and they make an effort to incorporate that into all they do, then reacting by adding "you're racist if you disagree with me." Caitlyn had been silently enduring this bullshit for months, hoping that someone would intervene. The WNBA, though, they essentially ignored it, acting as though it were a friendly rivalry. The league, however, realized they had just committed the greatest error of their lives when Caitlyn finally had enough and declared, "I'm out of here. Caitlyn was more than just a celebrity, she was the star." Oh, and the money was gone when she left the house. Sales of tickets, lost. Audience, are you tanked? Sponsors, let's not even discuss it. Then what was the WNBA doing? They changed from saying, no, everything is fine, to saying, we're quite sorry, Caitlyn. Please return as soon as possible, Cathy Engelbert. The commissioner was forced to intervene and apologize in public. Yes, in front of Caitlyn and the crowd, they went from playing it down to groveling. And believe me, the WNBA doesn't do that. This had never been done before. Additionally, it was an obvious indication of the league's desperation. They were aware that they were in danger. They felt that Cathy Engelbert had a great chance to address the issue and make it clear that their league does not tolerate such behavior. Another player, Breanna Stewart, stepped out after her game yesterday and reiterated those thoughts, saying that even while the players enjoy the surge of spectators brought about by this rivalry, there comes a moment when enough is enough. And they sincerely hope for that. Caitlyn, however, wasn't waiting for an apology while all of this mayhem was going on. Instead, she received a call from Europe offering her a contract that would have made her the highest paid female athlete in history. We're talking about more than $10 million annually. People, that's not change. That's money that can change your life. That couldn't be touched by the WNBA, could it? False. In an unexpected move, the WNBA managed to outbid Europe. Yes, you read correctly. Suddenly, the league that is known for paying shamefully cheap salaries discovered a huge amount of money to toss at Caitlyn. They were aware of their lack of options. The league was collapsing without her. Now, Caitlyn is more than simply the WNBA spokesperson. She is vital to the league. With Caitlyn back on her terms, they cannot afford to make a mistake once more. The whole future of the league, on her shoulders it lies, and they're probably aware of it. The WNBA will lose much more than only Caitlyn the next time if they don't improve their performance now. Clarknomics said, my pal. Because it's not even subtle when Caitlyn Clark leaves the WNBA and the entire league begins to collapse more quickly than a malfunctioning elevator. The stats are awful, awful, awful. Viewership is slashed in half, ticket revenues plummet and burn. Caitlyn wasn't only playing basketball when she was on the court. In essence, she was keeping everything going. 2024, her first season, yes, it was more than just impressive, it was a historic event. By herself, she propelled the WNBA to unprecedented heights that they hadn't even imagined in decades. The average number of people watching her games was an absurd 1.8 million. Let me reiterate that, 1.8 million. Numbers like those have not been seen by the WNBA since the invention of the three-point line. Sales of WNBA products have increased by more than 500% since the regular season began compared to the same period last year, with the league's first half fan gear sales reaching their greatest level ever. Sales of player-specific items such as jerseys and t-shirts have skyrocketed by 1,000%. Sales of league-specific apparel, like as the well-liked orange WNBA hoodie, have also increased by 200%. Caitlyn Clark's jerseys are the best-selling WNBA player merchandise. The situation was completely different when Caitlyn was on the court. Sales of tickets were crazy. I wish you luck in obtaining a seat if you wanted to see her perform. All of the games were completely booked and sold out. The most sought-after event in town was the Fever's games. Additionally, her jersey sales are through the roof, and we're not just talking about packing the stands. For the WNBA, Caitlyn Clark was essentially making money. Then everything dried up as soon as she left. Sales of merchandise lost. Those stadiums that had been packed with yelling spectators, looking half empty and abandoned all of a sudden with no one hurrying to purchase tickets. Since Caitlyn Clark was knocked out of the playoffs, WNBA ratings have dropped by half. In less than a week, they have lost half of their audience. And from here, it will only get worse. However, as soon as she even suggested that she could be departing, the hype train abruptly and dramatically crashed, as if someone had pressed the emergency stop button. The league as a whole disintegrated. Fans left the theater more quickly than those who left a bad film. Let's discuss the details. The opening of the Fever's 2024 playoffs, 2.5 million people watched the one game, which was essentially unprecedented for the WNBA. Then Caitlyn left, and what took place? Half of that was barely broken by the following series of games. Even the semifinals, which are meant to be the games that draw the most spectators, had a sharp decline in viewership, going from 1.8 million to a pitiful 64,000. It seems as though Caitlyn wasn't playing the second time. Yeah, no thanks, we're good, everyone said. When the female Suns faced Caitlyn Clark, their average viewership was around 2 million. These are the same female Suns who assert that there are more WNBA players besides Caitlyn Clark. 654,000 people watched Sunday night's game versus the Minnesota Lynx. The WNBA's willingness to go to any lengths to secure Caitlyn's return is not surprising. They had no other option after seeing their fan base and money accounts vanish with her. The league suffered greatly on both a financial and cultural level. The goal of the apology was to prevent the league as a whole from collapsing, not simply to please Caitlyn. They were aware of their need for her. The WNBA wasn't just having problems without Caitlyn. The commissioner had the defibrillator and they were on life support, intending to restore the league's prominence.